What's up, everybody? Welcome on back to another episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. I am your host, Bloody Bill Vaux. Back after a week off, after 6 weeks off. Basically, I just needed to take a break from things. I didn't stop creating all my other content in the week, or the 6 weeks that the podcast was gone. And by the time the podcast came back, I was just getting real tired across the board. There was a lot going on, and the week didn't really fix anything. In fact, a few things sprung up in the week off that make me a little worse off than prior to the break. If you have followed any of my live content, you've heard me talk about various issues with lumps and cysts on my body throughout my life. I've got a new one that's pretty painful right now. It's in the armpit area, of all places. These things just spring up at random. People are always like, "Oh, what happens? How do these things happen to you? Do you know why they happen?" Nope. No doctor's ever been able to tell me why. They just say, "Hey, everybody is susceptible to them, and everybody can get them, and you're one of the lucky ones." Because I've been getting them since I was 16 years old. Started getting them behind my ear when I was 16, behind the ear, in the ear, and I've now basically had them on almost every part of my body: jawline, in the ear, behind the ear, uh, in the neck, armpit, chest, lower region areas. We'll save some of those, but like I've had them on my hips, my calves, my butt. I'll never forget there was one. It was on the outer side of my butt cheek, right? Not too graphic of a story, but it does involve my butt cheek and a little bit of projectile, right? So I'd had this thing for a few weeks and I didn't have insurance. So I was just kind of riding it out, hoping the thing would kind of go away. And it just kept getting worse and worse and redder and bigger. And then one night, finally, even laying down became too painful to do. Like that was the last thing that I was doing that wasn't painful. And it was finally painful. And so I finally went to the hospital, called my mother from the hospital because I was like 19 years old when this happened. Called her from the hospital. She thought it was a prank caller. Because I go, "Ma, I've got a fucking hole in my ass." Of course I do. I was born with one. So she thought I was, she didn't realize I was saying basically that I had had something cut out of me and that I had a hole where they cut it out of me. I wasn't very elegant in my descriptions either. I said I have a hole in my ass. But the person that I was dating at the time came with me to the emergency room. And according to her version, whatever was inside of that thing flew about 3 inches from her head, like by her, like somebody shot a gun and missed. And I had warned everybody that this was going to be explosive because I knew from the ears and stuff. Nobody listened to me. The doctor jumped out of the way. Thankfully, he had stuff on. Unlike the guy that cut my ear one time and didn't listen to me, and he got the stuff in a place you don't want to get that stuff in your face. At an early lunch that day. Anyway, so yeah, a little bit worse off after the week off, but whatever. It is what it is. We're in decent spirits here. We're getting close to Elimination Chamber. That's this coming Saturday morning as this episode drops. And if it's prior to Saturday, you can join me for a live watch along of Elimination Chamber starting at 4:45 in the morning. Good Lord, 4:45 in the morning, youtube.com/@BloodyBillVaux. It'll be fun. I mean, I know a lot of people like to watch the event on their own. I've never done a full-length watch-along on YouTube, so I'm excited to give it a shot. Good or bad, we'll see how it goes. I've done them on Twitch before. They were fun over on Twitch, but I've never done one on YouTube long form. Not even short form at this point. I was going to do the Wrestlemania press conference, but a lot of things happened that day, and I just wasn't able to. But yeah, it'll be fun Saturday morning. But we're getting even closer to WrestleMania. We're getting closer to Sting's last match. We talked about a few of these things on the last episode of the show 2 weeks ago. Sting and Darby versus the Young Bucks is pretty much all but official. for the AEW Revolution pay-per-view. The way they're doing it, I'm not into it. I like the whole beatdown aspect, but why? Where's our conflict? Where, beyond this whole, oh, he's an old timer and we're gonna put the old timer. That's such a tired old thing. Like, people say Sting really likes the Young Bucks. And that's part of the reason why he chose them. Surely there's got to be a personal story we can use here. Like, the Young Bucks came to Sting for advice at one point in time, and he was too big of a star, and he blew them off back in TNA or something. Something the Young Bucks have been holding on to for years. Where now, with Sting's retirement on the horizon, that's the time to strike. I don't know. And then the follow-up week after this previous Wednesday, so last Wednesday as this episode drops, the Bucks and Darby did a promo, and they basically didn't even reference the attack. So I don't know. I keep saying if my friends are down to throw down on it and I only got to pay like $5 or $6 to watch this show, I might consider ordering it. But as of right now, we skip it. And then on the other side, creative we weren't really a fan of that we talked about on the last episode was the Rock, in theory, replacing Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania. We have since seen a major pivot in that story. The Rock decided to embrace being a heel. And so we're back to Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania. The Rock is now a member of the Bloodline. And this past Friday night, 5 nights ago, The Rock and Roman Reigns came out, cut a promo. Rock was in full heel mode. I gotta say, for waiting 2 hours for the promo, it wasn't anything impressive. That could have been a show starter, just like with Triple H when he came out and did his couple of one-liners. That's all it was. It was a bunch of one-liners and things like that. Of course, people are talking about how The Rock didn't do the one finger. He did the L motion. Billy Gunn's kids caught motion of that, or caught notice of that, and said guns up, which was funny. A couple of Bullet Club Gold memes have started circulating, which is also funny. But people are seeing that, and they're saying that means The Rock wasn't acknowledging Roman, and that means he's going to turn on him. And I guess when he was saying about Cody that he was going to make Cody the biggest, or make sure he was a loser at WrestleMania, that he was really actually pointing at Roman. And I get those little storytelling devices could be done to foreshadow an eventual betrayal. But regarding Rock acknowledging Roman, I don't think he needs to. The two were going to battle over the seat anyway. So Roman knows that Rock is coming for his seat eventually. Things changed because somebody talks smack about the family. Our big match can wait. We're going to stand side by side for now. So The Rock and Roman is going to eventually happen. Here's why I don't like the idea of The Rock turning on Roman leading into WrestleMania. I like it even less if it helps Cody win, because it devalues, in my opinion, the Roman Reigns loss, because it's not direct, it's not clean. Like when Jey Uso beat him at Money in the Bank overseas, that was big time victory. Same thing if Cody gets a clean win, that's going to be huge because Roman's lost like 2 times in the last 10 years. I'm exaggerating. But if The Rock is involved in the finish, it takes away from so much. So I kind of hope that they ride this bloodline thing out with The Rock through WrestleMania. I'd like to see Cody having those odds to overcome. Now we've got not only Roman, we've got not only Paul, we've got not only Solo, we got Jimmy. We also got The Rock in the way now. That's quite the mountain to have to climb, in my opinion. So I personally hope that there's no betrayals, but after their pivot here, I still remain cautiously optimistic. My prediction is that night 1, we'll see the Bloodline, Roman and The Rock, against Cody and Seth. And then on night 2, we'll see Cody against Roman. And right now, I'd have to say I see Seth and Drew being most likely. Although I thought somebody had said it in my YouTube live chat, but I read it on X right before I'd gone on to YouTube. But somebody said they wouldn't mind seeing Orton versus Rollins. I wouldn't mind seeing that. They've had some great matches before. Their WrestleMania 31, namely, that stands out and is actually a part of the upcoming WWE 2K24 40 years of WrestleMania. As of right now, we're 2 weeks out from that, and I have no plans to pre-order it. Nothing they have revealed impresses me, and I'll be so bold, like so many else have said. So I guess it's not so bold, but it's WWE 2K23 with a fresh coat of paint, even with some of the entrances that they're showing. Like Roman Reigns looks better this year, but he still has the wrong entrance. It's those little silly details that get people like me. And the gameplay looks just as, smooth but clunky as ever. Some of the models still look like garbage. I'm just like, how can you make an accurate Larry Bird in 1983, but you can't make accurate characters who are now? They need to get the basketball scan team on these WWE scans or something. There's such a quality difference, in my opinion, in some of these scans. Like some of these people just don't look right. And I see people, oh, it looks great. Okay. To each their own. If you're excited for WWE 2K24, I am not here to rain on your parade. I am just a consumer and a player that has gotten tired of the rinse and repeat. This happened after 2K19. I skipped 2K20 until about 6 or 8 months after the game came out, and then I finally grabbed it. I have a feeling that's going to be what happens with 2K24. I'm going to wait for a sale. Like right now, I've already decided you won't catch me for anything less than 50% at this point. Um, Anything less than 50% at this point in time, um, I won't be buying. It won't be happening. You know what I'm saying? Um, I don't know. But there's still time for them to reveal some stuff. But speaking of games, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into our topic of discussion for this week. Spent enough time jibber jabbering here in the front. Let's talk about our topic of discussion. And that topic of discussion this week is WWE All Stars. I loved this game. WWE All Stars is a game that probably could have done very well in an arcade setting. Um, it was released March 29, 2011 on the PS3, Xbox 360, the PlayStation 2, the PSP, the Nintendo Wii, and then later on it got a release in November on the Nintendo 3DS. Put together by THQ. In fact, it was one of the I think it was one of the final THQ wrestling titles to be produced. I believe they got in two more in terms of consoles. I'm not talking mobile titles and things of that sort. But I think after All Stars, they got in two more. Yeah, I think they got two more games in. But this was the break from the norm, right? Because as long as THQ has been making the games at this point, they have been leaning more and more into the simulation style and further away from the arcade style. When THQ picked up, when we came in on SmackDown, we started having, a more simulation base, but still arcade feel. And as the years went on and on and on, we kind of slowly started to move away from that arcade feel. Especially after SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, and into that transition with the SmackDown versus Raw series. Um, it was more simulation based. They were trying to put out games that looked more like the product that the consumer was watching on television. And I was a big fan of that switch from the arcade style to a more simulation presentation based product. But at the same time, you kind of hope that they would still do the occasional arcade title. Like, every so often they would do these side titles. Um, to just break from the norm, like Crush Hour was another one that I don't know if we'll ever I don't know if we'll ever talk about that one here on the show because it's not wrestling. It's wrestling meets twisted metal. Still a really fun game. But still kind of hope that they would do these little side titles, but it never really happened. Um, once we got away from the early era games in the SmackDown series, it was just SmackDown versus Raw every year. That was our one annual game. They did break off to the side for Legends of WrestleMania, which we'll be talking about, I think, in the next month or so. But that was still more simulation based. It was a cleaner play. It wasn't arcade. It wasn't over the top. But that's where WWE All Stars came in the overall history of WWE games, and I think is one of the better of the non-annual title games, maybe even the best that WWE has ever released. And I know there is a long list of them if you count mobile, if you count PC. There's a lot of different um, titles that weren't a part of the annual series that we could consider here, but WWE All Stars was literally a splash of color into the WWE game series. But let me tell you a little bit about it. Instead of just kind of going through the history of WWE games here and simulation and arcade. But again, courtesy of the SmackDown Hotel, as always, we got their notes. Thank you to them for keeping such a great video game archive in terms of wrestling. If you're looking for info on wrestling games, I really can't recommend the SmackDown Hotel enough. They really keep a really great page here. Like there's just anything you could think of for wrestling games. Pretty much they've got it here. But anyway, let's read the description of the game. It's a short one compared to some of the other ones, but it basically gives us a good idea. WWE All Stars delivers an all new take on WWE with fast, fun, fluid, and furious arcade style gameplay that takes WWE action to the next level. Featuring your favorite colorful WWE legends of the past and larger than life WWE superstars of today, WWE All Stars delivers the greatest roster ever assembled in a WWE video game. That part is debatable. It's up to you to determine the greatest of all time in the revolutionary new addition to THQ's WWE video game portfolio and debut release from THQ San Diego. The game features 43 legends and superstars. So that was a bold claim there. Greatest roster ever assembled. So let's jump right over to the roster. And let's take a look at it. We're gonna have the full roster here. There are a few non-playable characters involved. Let's stick on the all because that covers everybody. So here is the full roster for WWE All Stars. This includes DLC, and I'll start with the DLC. That way we know who the DLCs are. So the DLC that was added after release were the Big Boss Man, Chris Jericho, Cody Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, Honky Tonk Man, Jerry the King Lawler, Mark Henry, Michael P.S. Hayes, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, R-Truth, the Legion of Doom, and Ted DiBiase Jr. Then, in terms of our superstars roster, we have The Big Show, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Edge, Jack Swagger, John Cena, John Morrison, Kane, Kofi Kingston, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, Sheamus, The Miz, Triple H, and The Undertaker. And then on the Legends side, we've got Andre the Giant, Bret Hart, Eddie Guerrero, Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake Roberts, Jimmy Snuka, Macho Man Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, Ricky Steamboat, Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, The Rock, and The Ultimate Warrior. Now, in 2011, was this the greatest roster ever assembled? I don't know. Because Legends of WrestleMania had come out previously. and that roster was pretty stacked. Um, the annual games included some legends. Like, granted, it may not have included as many legends as we got here, but even still, Austin and The Rock were typically regular parts of the video games. So, that's not a surprise there. Brett had been regularly in the games. Eddie had regularly been in the games. I think Hogan had been regularly in the games. Like, none of these were really new or earth shattering. So it's a bold claim to say that it's the greatest roster ever assembled, but it's certainly a solid roster. I will give it that 110%. Um, you know, it's solid. Like, there's really no job guys or anything. I mean, go back and look at it again. Um, Andre the Giant had a great career. Boss Man, Big Show, Bret Hart. I'm going to look for the more lessers. Now, at the time, Cody and Drew McIntyre were kind of lessers, but they've both gone on to be greater thans. Jack Swagger was on top of the game at the time. He's kind of floundering a little bit, but he's a former world heavyweight champion. John Morrison, John Hennigan, Johnny TV, whatever you want to call him, he's had a pretty good career. He flounders a little bit, but he's still a name. Kofi. Michael P.S. Hayes, legendary character there. R-Truth had a good run at that point in time. Like, there's really no weak. There we are. I stumbled on my weak character. We got one weak character, and it's Ted DiBiase Jr. That guy never did it for me, period. The second that he wasn't literally out there wearing his father's suits and being $1 Million Man Jr., he was toast. Bro was toast. He should have done the exact same character. I think it would have gotten over for him, too. Sometimes you don't want to see somebody do the exact same gimmick as somebody else, but in this case, I think it would have done him a world of good to be playing as a $1 Million Man Jr. But I guess he kind of tried to play $1 Million Man Jr. and he got himself in some hot water. I think that bro's facing some jail time, or he's already in jail. I'm not sure. I'm not going to comment on it because I haven't followed it, but I'm pretty sure it involves a little bit of fraud, if I do recall. Yeah. But anyway, so that roster is pretty fantastic. But what can we do with this roster? What do we got for game modes, huh? What do we got for game modes? Well, let's start by talking about the match types that we've got in WWE All Stars. It was a bit of a limited list, I will not lie. And I have seen that table matches and ladder matches were on the board for this game, but developers were worried that it was going to take too much time to patch them in and fix issues with them, so they ended up cutting them out completely. They were going to appear in a sequel. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Anyway, we got one-on-ones, triple threat matches, fatal four-ways, tornado tag team matches, steel cage matches, elimination matches, extreme rules matches, and handicap matches. Those are our base game modes. So again, that leads into the idea that I had that this game, I think, would have done really well as a stand-up arcade. I think if this game had been plugged into an arcade cabinet and put it like Dave and Buster's or literally the only major arcade I can think of nowadays, I think it would have done really, really well. Limited gameplay types, which would have been great for multiplayer standing there at a cabinet. The game modes really lent in. Big fan of the limited match types. Ladder and table would have been awesome, but I think for what we got, for what this game was trying to be, it wasn't trying to be everything, It wasn't trying to give you Inferno matches, casket matches, cage matches, Hell in a Cell matches, extreme rules, tables, ladders, chairs, parking lot brawls. That's what the annual games were for. This game was just trying to be something different and breaking the norm of these annual simulation games. And so thus far, for what I have gone through here, I think we're nailing that. I think this game nails it, and yeah, it nails it. But anyway, continuing with our game modes. Path of Champions was one of the major game modes akin to like 2K Showcase or Season Mode in the WWE games. Path of Champions is a 10-match gauntlet, very similar style to the old towers and things of that sort that used to exist in a lot of the games, like even WrestleMania, the arcade game, and In Your House had these tower style challenges. Um, 10-match gauntlet. There are three different modes you can go through. You can challenge The Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam. Lots of cutscenes involving The Undertaker and Paul Bearer, which is very cool. Um, they're dark, they're ominous. They've got kind of ghoulish sounds going around them. They're really cool. They're really well done. They're animated as well. So you get the 10 matches there, and then eventually you end up facing The Undertaker at SummerSlam. Then we've got the Randy Orton story, where you're looking to end up facing Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, and you go through a series of matches there as well. I don't see a listing for them, so I'll try to find a listing because I think there's some listings here. We're trying the listings a little bit different this time. The Office printer is not working. So I don't have my printed list like I normally do. So I actually have the internet up. you know? So let's see. Can we find the matches here? All right. So this is the Randy Orton. So you start off in a situation against John Morris, or excuse me, against Drew McIntyre. Then you have yourselves a handicap match against John Morrison and Kofi Kingston. Then it looks like you have an Extreme Rules match against Edge. Then you have an Extreme Rules match, and excuse me, you have a regular match against Jack Swagger. Then you go handicap matches with Rey Mysterio and CM Punk, and then Big Show and The Miz. You face off against Sheamus in match. Let's see, that's 7. Match 8 is against The Undertaker inside of a steel cage. Match 9 is a handicap match against John Cena and Triple H. And the 10th match, of course, is a World Heavyweight title match with Randy Orton. Then for The Undertaker's path, match 1, you start off with a singles match against Mr. Perfect. Then you're in a handicap match against Jimmy Snuka and Eddie Guerrero. Then you're in a fatal 4-way match with Macho Man Randy Savage, Bret Hart, and Shawn Michaels. Then you move on to take on the Ultimate Warrior. Your 5th match will see you against Jake Roberts and Roddy Piper in a handicap match. Match number 6 takes you to WrestleMania against Andre the Giant. Match number 7 takes you against The Rock. Number 8 takes you against Stone Cold Steve Austin in a Extreme Rules match. Your 9th match will be a steel cage match against Hulk Hogan. And then finally, you meet The Undertaker in the 10th and final match. Then, of course, we have the tag team Path of Champions featuring D-Generation X. Again, all the fun cutscenes for Randy Orton and DX as well. In this one, it's all tag team matches. So match 1 is against Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Then we've got Roddy Piper and Drew McIntyre with the Scotland connection. We got John Morrison and The Miz together. We got our Slytherin Snakes together as Jake Roberts teams up with Randy Orton. We've got our American-made men, I guess, Sergeant Slaughter and Jack Swagger in a tag team bout. WrestleMania rivals team up together, The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's in match number 6. Match number 7, father and son together as Andre the Giant and the Big Show team up. Match number 8 is the Mega Powers, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. Match number 9 is the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane. And then, of course, in the 10th and final match for the WWE Tag Team Championship, D-Generation X and Tornado Tag Team match is the final stipulation there. The mode's really fun, and you can play through it multiple times, and I don't think it loses any replay value, even though it's the same matches over and over and over again. It's a really fun tower mode if you're into that sort of thing. I mean, I'm into that sort of thing, so that's why I'm putting it over. Um, I had a lot of fun with them. In fact, WWE All Stars was a game that I wanted to have so much fun with that I actually bought the book for this game. Um, the instruction manual, the big old book, the $20 add-on with all the moves and controls and special stuff. Like I actually bought that, and I didn't usually, but I really wanted to have fun with this game, and I really wanted to learn it. And like a '90s kid, when the game first came out in 2011, I'm sitting there on my couch with the game on my screen and the book right next to me, learning everything, playing along, and using these various modes to learn as I went, so that way I could ultimately uh, uh, be decent at this game. And still to this day, 13 years later, I can pick it up and still be okay at it. It takes a little bit of getting used to again when I first play it, but it's still all the much fun 13 years later. But continuing with our game modes here, um, we have fantasy warfare. Excuse me, my brain was my brain was freezing up on me because I was reading one thing and then I kind of froze on a word. Anyway, fantasy warfare. That sound familiar? Sounds like somebody might have had a YouTube show once or twice before in their lives. But anyway, this game also comes with a fantasy warfare and a very similar idea to what I used to do with WWE 2K Fantasy Warfare. It's the past versus the present. I think we got 15 matches total for this mode. I will keep account as I say them off. But here are the matches that you can do. I don't think these are in the order that you can play them. I feel like Piper and McIntyre was the first one, and it's not first in the list. But anyway, we've got biggest superstar Hulk Hogan versus John Cena. Mr. WrestleMania Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. Greatest Warrior Ultimate Warrior versus the Celtic Warrior Sheamus. Superior Lifestyle Steve Austin versus CM Punk. Greatest High Flyer Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. Most Charismatic Randy Savage versus John Morrison. Coldest Snake Jake Roberts versus Randy Orton. Ruthless Aggression. This is a weird pairing. Snuka versus Kane. Perfectly Awesome. We've got Mr. Perfect against The Miz. Excellence Execution. That's kind of a weird match title. But anyway, Bret Hart versus Edge. Undisputed, The Rock versus Triple H. Innovative Offense sees Ricky Steamboat against Kofi Kingston. Stars in Stripes Showdown sees Sergeant Slaughter against Jack Swagger. Pride of Scotland sees Roddy Piper against Drew McIntyre. And the final match in the Fantasy Warfare mode is the Greatest Big Man, Andre the Giant versus The Big Show. So a lot of fun to be had there. You start with one match and you continue to unlock as you go. Like I think the first match might have been, I feel like it was McIntyre and Piper for some reason. So let's say it was McIntyre and Piper, right? You play that match, you beat that match, you move on to your next one, and you keep unlocking like that. So it's not like you can just walk into the game and play all 15 matches. I mean, obviously, once you've unlocked, you can do whatever you want to do at that point in time. But at first, you got to unlock. You got to unlock everything. So again, it's fun in that respect because there was no accelerator for this game. Like the annual games, there was a lot of accelerators and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's just good. My brain's playing disconnect mode on me. I appreciate all of you that sit through those and don't make fun of me for them in the comments. And if you did, I'd understand because I sound a little stupid when these things happen. But I definitely appreciate the folks that don't come along and just dump all over your absent-minded friend here, who's just trying to talk about his old favorite video games. And every once in a while, Yeah, he has a hard time. He has a hard time. Yes, he does. Um, yeah, let's go back to the features of the game though, because we're getting close here. Like this is how limited the game was. Like I could talk more about the game itself than the features and stuff. Like the arenas, very limited. We have six: Raw 2010, SmackDown 2010, an All Stars arena, SmackDown Fist All Stars arena, a SummerSlam All Stars arena, a WrestleMania All Stars arena. Why do I keep saying All Stars arena? Because they're designed for the game. They're not based necessarily on reality. Apparently, WrestleMania 23 was also designed for the game, but it was removed before the game was released. Not sure why. Maybe they just liked their in-game fancy one more. I don't know. But either way, sounds like we missed out on having the extra arena when it came down to that. And then in terms of things that we were supposed to have that we never got to have, at some point in time back in 2015, a YouTuber, It's My Yard, shared an email exchange that they had with a developer from THQ San Diego who confirmed that they were working on WWE All Stars 2. Um, and this is directly from that YouTuber. This is the email exchange. Some notes that were dropped about the original All Stars and All Stars 2, which again was in works. So let's read this email. As for All Stars 2, I can tell you that we wanted to do many more types of special attacks that work in the same spirit as the RKO. Just a sidebar real fast. A lot of these finishers and moves and everything else were over the top. They were splashes of color. You know, the RKO would take you what felt like 10 miles in the air before crashing down. So as you have probably seen in the gameplay video that is playing on your screen, if you're watching on YouTube versus listening on Spotify, you can see how animated and over the top this game is. So I just want, because I hadn't really addressed it, I was kind of letting the screen speak for that feature of the game. But somebody might hear me say as the RKO and be like, well, what's so special about it? Especially if an RKO hasn't happened yet. Um, anyway, they would have different properties associated with them and could be used in many different ways and situations. I would have made huge changes to the juggle system to allow for more creative combos with the aerial attacks. I also wanted to have all the characters be very different and not follow the classes as much. I didn't care for those classes. I didn't really dive into those too much because I don't like when we do weight detection and size classes and all that in these games that are supposed to be over the top and just obnoxious. Like, I think it's silly to see Rey Mysterio body slam Andre the Giant in a 2K22-23 game. I don't find it as obnoxious in a game like this because it's over the top. These guys are all basically jacked to the gills on superpowers. Anyway, they would have had many capitalized, more attacks and combos. There were also other bounce mechanics we played around with that were really cool. There would have been unique special team moves and setups for guys that play as a team. I would have had unique navigation animations and navigation properties for each character. I would have also pushed for them to give their gimmicks. Excuse me. I would have also pushed to give them their gimmicks and reflect the essence of the character and obviously factor into combo. So, something you'll notice in this game, a lot of the characters kind of fight the same, they play the same, the mannerisms and the aura of certain characters do get lost in this game because they're all playing the same. I don't think that takes away from the game the way some people feel it did. Um, because this wasn't about the aura of the Undertaker or the electricity of The Rock or the earth shatters of Stone Cold Steve Austin. This was just about brawling, being obnoxious, and doing a Stone Cold Stunner that does a 720 spin, flips, and lands with an earthquake. You know, I don't know. This game made it so easy to have fun. Anyway, another note from that same developer. It's the last note that was shared because obviously, as we know, in 2013, I believe, is when the proceedings started. I mean, THQ San Diego actually closed in 2012, so things really started. It's funny. THQ San Diego's first game was in 2011. By 2012, they were closed. But anyway, the final piece of the email that was shared from the developer via the YouTuber It's My Yard uh, says we needed more modes. I agree, but I don't. Sidebar. Anyway, we had ladders and tables match modes working before we shipped WWE All Stars, but some people were too afraid that they would take too much time to fix, so they got cut. The tables match was particularly fun. It was a fast paced match mode where you had to throw the opponent through as many tables as possible to win, but we changed some of the rules. I would have experimented with different weapons you could throw, with different velocity trajectories and speeds to mix things up. I would have overhauled the way weapons worked and give them distinct combat properties. Also, we always wanted to take the fight backstage since there is so much you could do there gameplay wise. There were a lot of other ideas and fixes as well, but these are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So, coming out of WWE All Stars 1, these were things that they wanted to have in WWE All Stars 2. My research for this episode is the first time that I have heard that an All Stars sequel was in the works. I would have loved a WWE All Stars sequel, especially after this gameplay. I mean, could you imagine if we added the ladders and tables matches in? A tables match where the way to win is by putting your opponent through as many tables as possible. That sounds like it would have had like a time limit or something on it, where once the clock expires, almost like an Iron Man match. By a score of 10 tables to 6 tables, your winner, the Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, is that how it would have gone? And then, of course, if the game came out in 2013 or something like that, 2013, 2014, they were doing a lot more work with Legends and DLC and all that sort of stuff. Man, and then fighting backstage, lots of stuff that could have been done there, especially with this style of game. And then the ladder match probably would have been bonkers. I like the idea of weapon velocity trajectories being different based on the weapon type. It sounds like they had a really good base here for WWE All Stars, and they were going to look to take it to a whole nother level with the second WWE All Stars. Doesn't say when it was planned. It doesn't give any indication on when it may have come out. I'll do a quick little look to see. What is this? Somebody? I think somebody tried to create their own WWE All Stars. Somebody tried to create their own WWE All Stars too. I was trying to look to see if we could find any more info on WWE All Stars 2, but it does not look like there's any information there. But anyway, I was trying to see if there was any other mention of sequel having had been in the works, because, like I said, this is the first time I was ever hearing of it. So with the original, like I was saying, they had a really strong base, and I think that they were looking to take it to a whole new level in the second version of this game. And again, with how much they were starting to do with DLC and other legends, I mean, WWE 13 was filled with Attitude Era guys. 2K14 obviously became the first 2K game, but it was started by THQ. That was littered with Golden Era and Attitude Era guys. WWE All Stars 2 could have been really fun. And here's the thing about it. It's not too late to still do a sequel. THQ did, or excuse me, 2K did WWE 2K Battlegrounds, which is on the schedule eventually. Coming up in the next 10 to 15 episodes. Anyway, 2K tried their hands at it with Battlegrounds, and of course they 2K'd it. They microtransactioned it. They made most of the roster locked out of the gate. You paid $30 to get like 8 characters, which flew back in the day. Spending 50, $60 for a Super Nintendo game to get 8 characters on it. But that don't fly in current day. And so the game was pretty much dragged around. It was fun, but for a very limited time. I think if 2K could get out of their own way and stop worrying about these stupid microtransactions and just make a game for fun, they could make a really fun WWE All Stars 2 follow up. The original WWE All Stars is fun. Is it the perfect game? Nope. Is the gameplay perfect? Nope. But it's fun. I really feel like it would have done great in the arcade settings, and maybe they should have considered that type of release. Arcades are still huge. Could you imagine if at peak of fandom they had a WWE All Stars cabinet in like Dave and Buster's, for example? That would have been great visibility for the brand. All the Dave and Buster's around, and anywhere that has an arcade could have been somewhere that they could have put this WWE All Stars thing. And I bet it'd be one of those cabinets that hung around for years, like WrestleFest and Superstars used to. Never saw WrestleMania the arcade game hanging around as much as those two did. But my final thoughts on WWE All Stars. In my look around, the pretty general review of this game was either a 7 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 10. I agree with that 100%. Um, you know, I think the loss of the 2 to 3 points there is, the loss of aura of some of the characters and some of the very similar gameplay between the characters, similar movements, motions, mannerisms, that sort of stuff. There was a lack of distinction between some of the characters outside of their attires. But overall, this is a real fun game. It's easy to learn. You can play it with your friends. You can play it on your own. You can play. I think it's got up to 4-player support, so you could really throw down and have some fun with this. If you've been paying attention to the gameplay on the screen here on YouTube, you see what kind of fun this game can be. So would I recommend WWE All Stars to somebody that's never played it before? Absolutely. It's not a game that you should go spend any crazy dollar on. I don't know what the value is these days. I hear the retro market's taking a bit of a tank anyway. But I think I paid 15 or $20 for my used copy, which is pretty agreeable. And that's with the manual, the inserts and the case and everything. You probably get it much cheaper if you just buy the disc. All depends on what kind of collector you are. But my final score for the game, I would definitely give it a 7 out of 10. I'm not usually big into the 0.5 stuff. It's, it's either 7 or an 8. What do you mean half of a point? I'm not knocking on it. I prefer to go with the full number there. So I'd give it a 7 out of 10 at the end of the day. And I think the game still really holds up to this day. Some of these older wrestling games that exist over the years, they don't age well. You can't just pick them back up again and spend hours playing them. WWE All Stars is a game where I'll give you an example here before we start wrapping things up. I did a live stream of WWE All Stars Path of Champions with, I think, Randy Orton. Or I did the Randy Orton one on a live stream because I needed something short and to fill a day. And so the Path of Champions takes a couple of hours. So I was like, all right, great. This will be perfect. At that point in time, I almost wanted to just keep playing the game and stream it and continue playing, but I didn't have enough time that day to keep playing and streaming. And it's one of those games that I think you can play and get sucked right back into really quick. I mean, it's 2024. The game is approaching 13 years since its release, and I think it still holds it down in the very underrepresented arcade style wrestling genre of the wrestling, the subgenre of the genre. I think it holds it down. And I don't think it's too late for 2K to get out of their own way and do a fun WWE All Stars style game, even if they don't call it WWE All Stars. But I think it'd be cool if they, pulled a 10 years later sequel and did WWE All Stars 2. I'd probably line up for it as long as they didn't microtransaction the hell out of it like they do with the current games. That My Faction stuff is for the boys. But on that note, my friends, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up on this week's episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. I want to thank you for tuning in for this episode. It's been fun going back and talking about WWE All Stars and even covering a little bit of the current events at the top. Come on back next Wednesday, 6 a.m. Eastern, YouTube and Spotify. We're going to talk about WCW Super Brawl Wrestling for the Super Nintendo. Oh boy, you're probably just sitting there being like, oh, why? Well, let me tell you a quick why on why I am going to talk about this game, because I liked it quite a bit. Not the greatest game ever, but it was way better than their Nintendo game. And there's definitely some fun to be had playing it. It's basic, it's generic. You got to do a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. But it'll be fun to talk about that. And also, it came out at a crucial time for WCW because it came out in the era right before Hulk Hogan. Or I should say it was produced in the era right before Hulk Hogan. It came out in November of 1994. And Hogan had come in months prior. But we'll talk about that game, the roster. We'll share some gameplay, some stories of my childhood playing it with friends, how I discovered it, and why I still like it 30 years later. Holy moly, 30 years later. I'm getting old. But yeah. Other programming notes, be sure to join me on Saturday, 4:45 a.m. Eastern, 4:45 a.m. Eastern, youtube.com/@BloodyBillVaux for the Elimination Chamber watch-along. And then stick around, if you're still awake, 10 a.m. Eastern for Superstars of Wrestling, 11 a.m. Wrestling Challenge from the Challenge 64 universe. And then on Sunday, the 25th, we'll be talking about Elimination Chamber on the live show at 10 a.m. and continuing with the No Mercy Championship modes. There we go, my friends. That wrapped things up officially. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. Like I said, we will be back next Wednesday, 6 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about Super Brawl Wrestling for the Super Nintendo, WCW Wrestling, 1994. It's going to be a fun episode. But until then, have fun out there. Stay safe out there. Be happy out there. Because that's about all we can really do in this wild and crazy world. You do those 3 things for the next week, and then you come on back right here for a brand new episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks.